Arr, matey, there be beasts ahead. The sea beast, to be specific. It's arriving on Netflix, but is it worth checking out? I gotta stop doing that voice. In an era when terrifying beasts roamed the seas, monster hunters were celebrated heroes, and none were more beloved than the great Jacob Holland. But when young Maisie Brumble stows away on his fabled ship, he's saddled with an unexpected ally. Together, they embark on an epic journey into uncharted waters and make history. This is an animated tale that will probably remind you of How to Train Your Dragon. The story follows Jacob, a monster hunter on the ship The Inevitable. Now, he's not quite the captain of the ship, but he does have a special connection with the captain. Jacob is an accomplished hunter, and in this world, the king and queen have put bounties on the sea beasts just in an effort to rid the oceans of their threats. The animation in this is absolutely stunning. I mean, a lot of it looks almost photorealistic, aside from the people and then the beasts. The water, ships, and environments all look like they could have been captured on film. Now, I'm not saying the people and the beasts don't look phenomenal, because they look awesome also. They're just not as real as everything else. And I'm actually a bit thankful for that, because there is something pretty creepy about animated people that look completely real. I mean, it's unsettling, even though it's impressive when it's pulled off. The story will probably feel familiar in its overall arc, as we have a supposed hardened sailor finding himself having to look after an orphan. Now, as they go on the quest to kill the final beast, which is this giant red monster called the Bluster, sentiments and feelings begin to change. Actions are questioned, leading characters to examine why they do certain things and what is now right and just. The conflict is present, and it's enough for adults to be invested in a story that just has a tiny bit of heft to it, but it's also not so heavy or deep that younger kids won't be able to follow along and be entertained. Now, the reason I said this could remind you of How to Train Your Dragon has a lot to do with the creature design. They're made to have this softness to them, despite being terrifying. I mean, the eyes and mannerisms are kind of dog-like, leading to a vulnerability that allows for quick connection. And it's not just with the Bluster that we see this. There's another small creature that is very dog-like called Blue. Now, he's goofy and a great travel companion, creating just a bit of levity and general cuteness. The variety of the creatures we see is also awesome, as these typically are reimaginings of creatures that we're already familiar with, or they're massive-sized variations of familiar animals. Now, for example, there's this humongous crab. I mean, it's purple and spiny, and it would have been pretty terrifying if it were chasing you. For adults, this is going to play out pretty predictably. The arcs aren't overly complex, but they don't need to be. I mean, there's just the right level of story content to get the kiddos engaged and invested. Plus, there's some decent slapstick and action within this to add just a ton of excitement for everybody. I like the theme that's also present within this that focuses on curiosity, deep thinking, and questioning the information that's been declared by the powers that be. I mean, it's not like they were speaking out of a knowledgeable authority. They're just declaring something to be true solely based on their position rather than fact. The character progressions are wonderful to watch, especially with Jacob. I mean, he's the one with the most to learn, and luckily, we get to watch a positive growth trajectory. Karl Urban voices Jacob, and he's got just the right amount of snark and charm. Now, something I was really impressed with outside of the animation was how they scale everything. When a human is near a beast, I mean, we can tell just how they're dwarfed, but there are points where we get to see the beasts then swimming through just the ocean, and we then get a sense of how small they actually are in the larger aspect of the world. Now, as much as I think the littles will enjoy this, I also think that it's a bit too long and could cause them to squirm in their seats. I mean, this is just short of 2 hours, which is definitely on the longer side for an animated kids movie. There are some portions where I think faster storytelling could be present, just to allow scenes to either move along more efficiently, or they could have just been trimmed. The musical score is great to listen to. It has a distinctively pirate sea shanty feel to it, but also has some orchestrations that are dramatic and emotional. Now, probably the weakest point in the entire story are the antagonists. The king and queen are pretty underdeveloped, especially in light of how the story arc involves them. I mean, it's enough for kids, but from an adult point of view, they're useless characters that have a huge influence on the trajectory of the initial part of the story. So overall, the Sea Beast is excellently animated with a style that creates some realism and depth, but also still allows for some fantastical elements to come to life. The story, while familiar, is engaging, but also predictable. I loved the creature design and the musical score, each creating a world that envelops us in the lore. The story does take a bit too long to tell, and the overarching antagonists are ill-defined, but kiddos should get a kick out of this one. There's no sex or nudity, there's a little bit of profanity, and a lot of animated violence. I give the Sea Beast 3.5 out of 5 couches. So are there any animated movies you've seen recently that really impressed you? Let me know about them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.